Do you suffer from debilitating migraines? You know, that throbbing pain in the front or side of your head that's so severe you're unable to work or do anything other than retreat into a dark and quiet room? Have you had them for years and just haven't found a solution? Call Dr. Elizabeth Ebersol and put an end to your debilitating migraines forever, or go to her website at www.handmadehealth.com. That's www.handmadehealth.com.
Well, hello, everybody. Back to
Motherfucker, I apologize, brother.
Balls to the Wall podcast number 6. Had a little issues here with Nick having to cancel last minute and Billy having some things, but you know what? We're going to bring this thing and get it started here today. We welcome you guys here to Balls to the Wall, episode number 6. My man, Billy Martin Jr. How are you doing today?
Well, I was late today, and thank you for putting up with me, Kenny.
Oh man, not a worry in the world. And when I see that picture behind you over there, Billy Martin Sr., you can do about just anything. Anyway, we do appreciate you guys listening to us. Nick Harris had to get called on assignment again. He is going to be our host. He's just had some really tough last 3 weeks for him. His 247 job has really got him going crazy a little bit. It's just been one of those kind of start of the football season, so he's busy with recruiting world down there at the University of Texas. So God bless his soul. I told him his seat is still warm for him when he comes back. That is for sure. We need Nick to kind of get in between Billy and I and give us a hint of reason.
Well, at least get the young guy's point of view, right?
Absolutely. And we need that dynamic too. We definitely need that younger demographic, I should say, listening to us on the pod. We appreciate you guys. Go to the YouTube, subscribe, Balls to the Wall podcast. That helps us out tremendously. All you have to do is subscribe. It'll give you a link. You'll get hints when we're going to put up the podcast each and every week. No money, no worry about a credit card, none of that. Just sign up, just subscribe for us. We greatly appreciate it. And we're also open to suggestions too. We don't want to try to reinvent the wheel here. We want to bring the people what they want to hear. So we're very open to any suggestions you guys may have going forward. Please let us know. At FridayNightGlory.com, or you can get in touch with me, or whatever you want to do, however means it is, please reach out for us. We'd love to get some feedback from you guys. We really would. We're going to try to shorten them up a little bit. I know we get animated sometimes and make the podcast a little longer than we should. So we're going to try to do this thing about 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes each time. So yes, you can listen to us when you're working out, listen to us in your car, wherever it may be, taking a walk, whatever. Please listen to us though. We greatly appreciate it. Billy, starting off the day, we're going to start off with, last week and a half of baseball. It seems like just, a couple months ago we had opening day, and now here we are at the end of September, and we basically got 2 pennant races that we're kind of really paying attention to. And we talked about it a couple of weeks back, that NL West. I mean, goodness gracious. What could you say about that? I mean, you got the Giants that are 99 wins. The Dodgers got 97 wins. The Giants, man, they just beat the drum. They just keep beating that drum, and there's been no drop off since the beginning of the year till now. I mean, I can't commend the job that Gabe Kapler's done over there in San Francisco.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you what, Farhan Zaidi, their general manager, he gets named to that position by a guy that's going to be a Hall of Famer, Brian Sabean. Right?
Yes.
Brian Sabean takes himself out of the general manager role and hires Farhan and gives him the reins on what looked like I don't know, it looked like a terrible situation. You had a bunch of older guys, right? Their contracts were, they still each had a couple of years to go. They all looked like they kind of turned the corner. And I know a lot of people in San Francisco were saying, scrap this, let's go young. Well, you still got to pay those guys.
Yes.
And when they sign those kind of contracts, it's a lot of money. So
Absolutely.
Farhan comes in and puts a patch here and a little grease over here and a little glue over here. And what the heck? What they're doing is amazing. I mean, what did you say earlier about their last 10 games?
I mean, this is the phenomenal
You know,
thing. The Dodgers have gone 8 of 10 and they lost a game in the standings. I mean, you play 800 baseball and you lose a game in the standings. It's just unreal.
And look, the Dodgers, we're talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers who won the World Series last year. And at the trade deadline, they go at, Max Scherzer, maybe the best pitcher in the game, and Trey Turner just to mix him in because, they could always use another pretty good superstar. And they're still behind these guys. And like we talked about earlier, I'm not sure if you're the Dodgers and the Giants said, well, I'll trade you our shortstop for your shortstop or our third baseman or left fielder or right field. I'm not sure there's a position on the field you'd really make a trade for. And it just shows what an amazing job Gabe Kapler's done, like you said.
It's amazing. And to think about when he took over, basically the only new young piece that he had was Yastrzemski. I mean, that was what he had coming up when he took that job. And like you said, it was a whole bunch of 35, 33 plus guys in age throughout that lineup. And they had years on their contracts, as you said. And somehow, some way, Gabe Kapler brought out the Geritol bottle and got all those guys to go back into their mid-20s and production-wise. And as we were talking about a little off camera, they've got 9 guys that got double-digit home runs. That's not a home run hitting park that they play in first, at home. And then you got, 9 games at Chavez Ravine every other year. I mean, it's not like they're hitting granted, you got Colorado. I do understand that. But still, these guys are hitting the ball out of the park, and you're getting yeoman pitchers, to Alex Woods of the world, the Gosmans of the world, who are just journeyman pitchers at best, career year. And then your one guy you thought was going to be really good for you, Johnny Cueto, he's been hurt off and on most of the year. So, I mean, hats off to what they've done over there. Because, I mean, it really was a hard sell for the fans to see all those older guys coming out, this year at that park. Because, that park, San Francisco Faithful, they go out and they support that team. Ever since they've moved into that park, they've been out there in groves. So, there wasn't any excitement. I believe the over-under total wins this year was 78 out of Las Vegas for the Giants. Here we are sitting at 99. I mean, you talk about shattering and, a total. And those guys in Vegas know what they're talking about pretty much. So, it shocked everybody. But, man, kudos to that whole organization. I think it's well run. I mean, it's not a much better atmosphere than on a Sunday afternoon seeing that ball, going out to McCovey Cove. It's nice to see that. And it's the Giants are replacing the Padres, who we thought the Padres are going to be the ones neck and neck with the Dodgers this year. And it's been the exact opposite on that, as the Padres have limped in the second half here down the stretch. Now, albeit they've had, a lot of injuries in their pitching staff. I mean, Tatis has missed some time off and on. I mean, they've had some injuries, but man, that is a big disappointment for Preller out there in San Diego this year.
Well, and as you see, they're making some changes right now. They just gave their farm director the boot. I don't know if you noticed, but a couple of days ago, the 2 highest paid players on the team got into a little screaming match in the dugout. And that's, that kind of tells you the whole story right there. And I gotta tip my hat to AJ Preller, though, because the only move there for me that was suspect was the Hosmer contract.
Right.
For me, that was way more money than, to me. He's a great first baseman. Don't get me wrong. But you could stumble upon Darren Ruffs and Luke Voits and these guys at that position. There are just a lot of guys that are good now.
Well,
But
did
let me
you
roll
think he
back.
was? Do you think he was bidding against himself a little bit there? I don't think Hosmer would have gotten that kind of money on the open market.
I don't either.
Mhm.
But what we also know about Hosmer is he's clutch in big games. He's a World Series hero,
Yeah.
and he's a great guy and a great teammate. So that part I love, because when he went out and spent the big money on Manny Machado, who says out loud, "Hey, I'm not Charlie Hustle,"
Right.
and
Mhm.
I'm sure his agent was like, "What are you doing on that one?" But I have a hard time making that guy my highest paid player, because I've even had scouts tell me they watch the Padres now and they don't see the same fire in that team since they signed Machado. But I don't know. I just thought AJ had done such a great job, and you can only throw him out there. You can't play the games for him.
No, and obviously, the injuries has just decimated the pitching staff throughout the year. The Blake Snell, I mean, last time we saw that guy, he was pitching a great game in the World Series, and gets taken out after 6 innings, and then Tampa Bay obviously goes and loses that game. And he's been hurt off and on, he just hasn't been the same. And normally American League pitcher going to the National League, that's kind of a step up for them because they're going up against pitchers, every game. He hasn't had that swing miss factor at all this year. Darvish has been hurt for them, which hurt them in the beginning of the year. It's, when Darvish is healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in the league. Problem is he just can't seem to stay healthy anymore, the man says he can throw 7 pitches. Is that one of the reasons why he's hurt all the time? I don't know. It's just, and he's not getting any younger.
The number 7 has something to do with it, but I don't think it's 7 pitches. And first of all, you only have 5 fingers. Maybe you should only throw 5 pitches. But what happens, what I've noticed for years is the pitchers in Japan pitch 1 day a week, right? They say, "Kenny, you're our Friday. All this money, we bring them over here to play against a better brand of baseball, and yet expect them to pitch every 5th day, when for years they've been pitching every 7 days."
Right.
And I mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't take a rocket bat and say, "Hey, Darvish, you're a Friday guy. You're pitching every Friday night. We're going to work a 6-man around you."
Right.
Keep these other guys and see, because Trey Hillman told me about you, Darvish. Or he ever was Rangers and won it all. And he said, "Man, this guy's special. I mean, he could carry a team." And I think he's right, but we've got to use him the same way his body, his brain is used to being used.
Yeah, and that's the extra workload. I mean, what is that? It's 3 more starts per month, maybe 4, depending on what the schedule is, that's innings, and he's a guy that throws a lot of pitches too. So you're not talking about a guy just going up there and saying, "Hey, just put the ball in play." He's trying to miss bats. So, he works deep in a lot of counts. So that's a lot of wear and tear, and I really didn't think about that until you brought that up. It's a great idea. I mean, he's just throwing a lot more than he's ever used to been throwing, and at the highest level too. So, that's, he makes a mistake here to a number 6 or 7 hitter. They're still hitting it out of the park. And when he was back home, that 6 or 7 hitter may be just putting the ball in play. So, he didn't have much room for error up here at the big leagues. Yeah, but it's just really interesting.
Nobody does.
Yep. And then the last race I wanted to quickly talk about is the AL East and that wild card. I mean, whoa. The Yankees go on the big streak, then they go on the big El Photo streak. Now the Rangers come in town, they get a little bit, they get a home cooking and they get well again. They are now essentially a half game ahead of Toronto. They got the same loss, that both of them have the same amount of losses. Toronto's played one less game so far. The Jays, they went out to the West Coast a couple weeks ago on a 1-5 trip, and now they come back and they've just been mashing the baseball since they came back on the East Coast. Yankees got a big series where they're going to Toronto this weekend. They play 3 at play 3 at Red Sox, and they play 3 at Toronto. Then they have the Rays for 3 at home next weekend. The Yankees going to get into this wild card. They're going to have to earn it. I mean, because all 3 of those teams are playing really good baseball right now. I don't think anybody wants to play the Rays right now. I mean, what they've done has been phenomenal with the $78 million payroll, whatever it may be the case. Losing your top 3 starters from last year's team. I mean, think about that. You lose your top 3 starters, one because he's injured, but the other 2 are gone. And here you are, leading the AL East by 6 games. Nonetheless, it's unreal. I mean, great job the Tampa Bay's done.
Not only that, not only did you lose those players that we're talking about, and we're laughing at that and yelling at them when they're pulling Blake Snell off the field in the World Series, but they lose their GM every year, it feels like, Chaim Bloom leaves there. All of a sudden, look at Boston. They're 2 games up on everybody in that wild card. Where did he come from? Tampa. Oh, who won the World Series last year? Gosh, the Dodgers. Where'd they get their guy? Well, where'd Friedman come from? He came from Tampa Bay. It's and there's a very underrated guy who doesn't get a lot of credit, named Jerry Hunsaker. And he was also
absolutely yes.
Another Tampa Bay guy. Jerry's brilliant because he's a former agent, but he also was the Houston Astros general manager back in the Biggio, Bagwell, Berkman days.
Yeah.
And when he left Houston and went to Tampa, that's when that culture changed and that team really started to become a perennial playoff team.
Well,
and they got rid of the word devil.
Yeah, yes, and those ugly jerseys they had too. Thank God. The Greg Vaughn jerseys. Oh, I couldn't stand those. I could not stand them. But the one thing about it is their system works. I mean, obviously, their player development is second to none. Maybe the Dodgers may have more, on that at least for a longer time period. But I mean, you really flip a coin for the production. Did they come from their minors? And I mean, that's how you build your roster. I mean, why this so coveted, what I think the labor is going to be so bad is the players want that, be reduced to 5 and 4 years instead of, having it. Well, it's coveted because they balances your checkbook when that guy comes out in his first year and he has great production for 3 years and you're only paying him $500,000. So, it's a nice way of keeping that budgetary reasons down a little bit. But I mean, their bullpen every year just seems like they have guys, flamers, that come out of that bullpen and they shorten the game. I mean, it really is a 6-inning game when you play the Rays now. Because if you don't have the lead by the 6th or 7th, you're probably not going to beat them. You got to get to the Rays early and get to their bullpen early. That's been a recipe for them. But the way they have the most runs scored in the American League. When was the last time we could say that about the Rays? I mean, it's always been about pitching with them. Misfits in the lineup. And here they are. They are leading the league in runs scored now. So if you get any pitching that they normally give you in the playoffs, and you're also hitting the ball out of the park and scoring, they're going to be an extremely tough out, and they're going to have all the games in Tampa Bay. Now, people are going to scoff at saying that's not a home field advantage. It is in the playoffs for them. Tampa will be there. They will sell out that stadium during the playoffs. During the midweeks, during the weekends, not so much. But when it turns October, that stadium will be full and it will be loud.
Yeah, as awesome as Tampa is, I always felt like Major League Baseball should not put teams where they have spring training. I mean,
yeah,
because you have people who have these long-standing relationships with the Red Sox, the Yankees, all the teams that winter there and have for 100 years. They have fans that are lifetime fans, and for some reason couldn't embrace their own team. And there are several other states that could use a team. I never totally understood that. And not that the Rays and the Marlins haven't been great, but it's just they've never seemed to draw like they really should.
Well, you break up a good point, because those are destination places. So for people, they retire in Tampa Bay, they retire in Arizona. So their
Right.
affiliations, the Cubs, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, or whatever it may be. And then you have the fixed income brand that's there. Most of the retirees are on fixed income. They can't afford to be going to those Tampa Ray, those games. They can't do that. Now they can go to a spring training game. It's $10 to get in, blah, blah. They can take care of their business. It's $25, $30, talking about two people trying to do that. Then talking about going across the bridge to get there. It's not the easiest place to get to if you've been to Tampa Bay before. So, I mean, I think a lot of things hinder what, they try to do. I think it's the same thing out there in Arizona. It's the same way. It's just that, God, I mean, Chicagoans love Phoenix. If you ever watch a Chicago Cub Arizona game, it sounds like they're at Wrigley. It does. And so that's just part of it. And I mean, they have to try to get around that. And I don't know how you can. I just, as you said, what's wrong with Memphis having a team? I bet you they would support that baseball team all day long. Nashville. I mean, I'm thinking those two places, man, you would think would be hotbeds for a Major League Baseball team. We'll see. I don't know if that's ever going to materialize, but anyhow, it does not destroy what the Rays have done in the last 5 years as an organization, because they have constant turnover.
No doubt.
Constant turnover. And here they are, this playing 750 baseball, making deep runs in the playoffs. And I really think that the only team that I really think that can beat the Rays is the team that's a little south of where we live right now, and that's the Astros. I think the Astros, to me, I think is the legitimate team that can beat the Rays. And I only say that because I think the Astros have the most clutch playoff pitchers. I'm not saying their pitching staff is that way, even though McCullers, he can pitch for me any day of the week. But I said, just you look at Correa and you look at Bregman and you look at Altuve's playoff production in the last 4 years, man, those guys rake in the playoffs when it's hard to rake in the playoffs because you're playing the best pitching staffs in the playoffs. They always seem to come alive. So I think the Astros, to me, is the most legitimate chance to knock off the Rays going forward.
I do too. And it's funny how little press they get, how people don't seem to talk about them. They talk about the Yankees ups and downs and everything else, but I mean, are they still mad about the trash can lids? Because,
Well, and I think the Astros,
when does that guy get a job?
One of the things the Astros
When
did
does
this
Jeff
year
Lunau get a job?
Right, yeah. Well, they
Right?
shut their mouths too this year. Last year they popped off a little bit about all that. Hey, you haven't heard anything this year from them. So I think that's another reason why nobody's really talking about them, because they're not saying anything. They're just going out and playing winning baseball. That's what they're doing. So it seems like they don't have that bullseye so much on them anymore, because they finally buried their own demons a little bit, said, you know what, we're damned if we say anything, we're damned if we don't say anything. I think that's what they basically said. So, hey, we'll just go out and play baseball. And that's what they're doing, you know. And they got another budding star in that Alvarez. Whew. That Alvarez kid for them is pretty good. He's pretty good.
No, you got guys that aren't even getting to play that have a nice future for them. And they got about 3 outfielders that I think would be starting on a couple other teams. That
Tucker kid.
like Theory and McCormick, and I mean, they've done a great job. And I'll say it again, Jeff Luhnow, who is still without a job, who took that organization over after it was destroyed by Tim Purpura. And
yes,
Tim Purpura took it from Hunsaker, the guy we were talking about with Tampa, who left there to go to Tampa, and Luhnow doesn't have a job. You know, Cora got his job. I'm
Hinch,
pretty sure his Chivers got a job. He's doing a great job in Detroit. Where and when is Jeff Luhnow getting hired? Because he to me did the best job of anybody when he took that over. I'd even lobbied for a friend to get that job, and when they hired Jeff, I was a little skeptical, and wow, what a great job he did.
Well, think about that minor league, when they finally tore it down the way I think the Ranger fan really wanted to happen here last year, this time, just tear it down, gut it, and do what you needed to do. I mean, they really gutted that roster, and they stuck by those young players when they came to the big leagues. You know, they didn't go between AAA and back. They said, hey, go out, learn, perfect your craft, do what you're doing. It takes patience, but it also takes sharp mind to be able to bring the right people on. And their organization for a long period of time was either number 1 or number 2 on the minor league side is in prospects. So when you have that steady bevy of talent coming in like that, that really speeds up the process of you trying to rebuild. And they sped it up pretty good. And then they said, okay, well, we'll just go get Verlander now. And then all of a sudden you have a really good team with a bunch of young players, but you got a force on that mound that you know every 5th day you're going to win. Man, it goes a long way in developing confidence. And the Astros, one thing they're not lacking is confidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, we'll move to another topic here. We'll talk about, and you know, our buddy Randy told us to talk about it, man, the 12 Mighty Orphans. I know that you and I both got to watch it. I actually read the book. You and I, we've known I've known Jim Dent for at least almost 30 years. I mean, God bless his soul. He was a brilliant writer. Worked at the Times Herald, I believe, for a while, the Dallas Morning News for a while. He's wrote several books out there on the time. And he is, you know, unfortunately chased a few demons. So he's serving some time for some of the things that he done, you know, off of the book record, I should say. And but he still stays in touch with us. He still stays in touch with us from time to time. And but this book is really good. And it's, I mean, the true story behind it. I mean, doesn't it just sound like a small Texas town type story? And you couldn't be any other state, could it?
No, it's really, and it's his 2 best books for me were The Junction Boys,
Yes,
and 12 Mighty Orphans.
Yes, absolutely.
But ESPN didn't capture The Junction Boys the way 12 Mighty Orphans was captured.
Yes.
When I saw it in the theater, or when I saw it on TV, okay, I enjoyed it, but the book I read in a week.
Yep.
You know,
Couldn't
and
set it
12
down.
Mighty Orphans, my eyes watered a couple times. Don't tell any of the guys, but you know, it was so good, and of course, you know, it helped that one of the actors in it I knew. He literally played for the Texas Air Hogs. I signed him, and to watch him as still in there was kind of neat. But man, that movie, and being a true story, to win a state championship in Texas, which is one of the biggest states in our country, and they win with 12 guys. I mean, how do you do that? There's 11 guys on the football field.
11 guys on the football field. It's unreal how, for me, primitive it was back then. They're talking their equipment now and all that other stuff. You're looking at their uniforms going, God, I can't believe they played football in this stuff. I'm thinking, goodness, and those big cloth, jerseys, and it's 90 degrees outside, 85% humidity. I'm going, how did they survive in this environment? But to grab all those misfits, I call them, together and have them win the state championship the way they did, I mean, it's something that'll never be done again. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, there's just so that's why I kind of like it, because it's a real story, but I mean, it's a great ending to it, and it's a family-oriented movie too. So it's not like you want to take I think your wife will like that movie. I think your daughter will like that movie. It's not a male oriented movie by any stretch of the means. Even though Ron White's in it, he's not too foul with the language, I promise. But yes, I loved seeing how they put Jim Dent's his book into the actual film itself. I felt like Jim Dent was actually producing that movie, if that made sense. I really did. You can feel the human element. You can feel all that. You can feel the emotion as it went through. It was just phenomenal. Like you said, it's a tear breaker. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't have any shame in that. It's a tear breaker, but it's really good. It's something that I think everybody should take time to go watch. It's a really good show.
Well, I mean, you think about how amazing it is that a 12-man team wins it all, but these kids didn't have parents.
Right.
These kids were all living in a dorm and had to deal with all these other issues. I mean,
unreal. Orphans.
I mean, can you imagine
Orphans.
the lack of confidence you might have if your parents didn't even want you, and the stuff they had to go through in the dorms, the stuff we didn't even see that probably happened on a regular basis. And they win the state championship. I mean, it's awesome. I so recommend it to anybody. And I'm not saying that because Jim's an old friend. I'm saying it because it's one of the most moving sports movies I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, you had 12 kids that never felt wanted, but all of a sudden they all felt wanted together. I mean, how many times, like, you think about it, when you're playing sports and team sports, maybe you had one orphan, maybe, their whole team is orphans, so I mean, I can't imagine the emotional pullbacks that they had all the time. Well, then I'm buying in, but is it going to be taken away from me again? I mean, I'm sure they had to deal with that kind of emotional tag on that. And then you look up, you go to other football stadiums, and their kids, the teams they're playing against, they got parents in the stands watching them. And the orphans, who's watching them? I mean, but yeah, I agree with you 100%. Jim did. He hit a home run on that one for sure, no question.
But now, think about this too. As like growing up in a city like Arlington, Texas, we were always overwhelmed when we played the team from Dallas or the team from Houston, from the big city,
Right.
What do you think a bunch of orphans are feeling like when they got to play against Highland Park?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, those guys have actually matching shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on here?
Yes. And hey, finally, I'll try to wrap it up here with a little football. Obviously, we have week 2 and week 3 in college. We'll start off with the college a little bit there. I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to watch this or not, but Bama going out to Florida last weekend and out in Gainesville at the Swamp. Bama, I mean, taking care of business throughout, first half of that game at least. But Florida, I mean, they had a vaulted comeback against that, what we call, the best defensive mind in the world, and Nick Saban. and they gave them every bit of a chance of at least going to overtime. Not saying beat. I'm not going to say that just yet, but I said, they're a 2-point conversion away from being tied in that ball game, and just the third downs that they kept completing against Bama. I'm just not used to Bama being pushed around on the line of scrimmage like they were for the last 3 quarters of that game. I'm not saying there's a chink in the armor, but that was a heck of an effort by the Gators. I'm not a big moral win kind of guy, but you had to sit around there Sunday watching that film thinking, well, we competed pretty dang on good yesterday, and we were a play or two from going to overtime.
Absolutely. I mean, think about, and there are probably 4 different times they could have flipped their skirt and just quit.
Yeah.
And Florida just kept banging, and that was a great game. I really enjoyed that.
The atmosphere there at the Swamp is second to none to me when they're, I think it was the highest attended game, and 5th highest attended game there at the Swamp. When they get going with the Gator chops, it's pretty nice to see it. And I guess maybe it was a little bit better because I didn't see that last year. So I kind of really missed it. It seems like it's been 2 years since I've seen the Swamp, back to being the Swamp, so maybe that gave me a little extra juice on that factor on that. But, and then a couple of teams that, top 5 teams that are really offensively, it's Clemson and Oklahoma. Clemson, they scored 14 points last week to beat Georgia Tech, I believe 14-8 or whatever, something of that nature, at home. What's going on with Clemson's offense? You had that great DJ. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because, Lord, I can't. But, he played really well for them in spots as a true freshman last year when Trevor Lawrence came out of the game. They're just, they're not, you scored, 7 against Georgia and you got 14 against Georgia Tech. And there's some offensive questions there big time.
Yeah, I don't think you can really quantify what it means to a team losing a guy like Lawrence. Yes, that kid looked great last year, but Lawrence is in the NFL for a reason, and that hurt. Any freshman can fall apart up here just like that. And
sure.
I don't know. It just shows the level of play in the SEC, how good it is in all of college sports now. One player can make such a difference.
Absolutely.
From the positive and negative standpoint that, you better recruit, you better know what you're doing. But the immeasurable thing, right? You can know a guy's 40, you can know how strong he is. Just like in baseball, you've had all these analytics. In football, they do too. But the 6 inches between your ears,
right?
Man, we can't figure that out. When we figure that out, we'll be the best there is.
Yeah, we would. And hey, I want to also give props to, Nebraska. They come into Norman last weekend and they shot a pretty loaded gun at them, I thought. They ball controlled the game. Their first 2 drives were like 14 plays and the second one was 12 plays. So I think that really kind of stunted OU's offensive momentum a little bit because they weren't on the field that much in the first half. Plus, it was hot. It was blistering that day. But, a lot of people had thought Nebraska, Oklahoma was just going to take them to the house, and they never got that opportunity. And me being an OU guy, Lincoln Riley, I've just got a few words where you run the football. We don't need to pass the ball on every down. You need to start establishing a physicality to your offense like you did 2 years ago, because the way they're played last Saturday is not the way you're going to win in the SEC next year. Whenever they get to the SEC, you're going to have to be able to push people off the line of scrimmage to have success in that league. And right now, it's a lot of finesse on the Oklahoma offensive side right now, almost related back to little Texas Tech days back when they were there throwing the ball way too much. It looks pretty in the stat books. It's entertaining, but it's not winning football. It's just not. You can't win football that way. So, but yeah,
No,
they've not
those
looked
were the
good.
years I was in, those were the years I was in college.
Yeah,
Texas
yeah.
Tech, you know, Mike Dykes, and uh, we lose 56-52. They were a blast to watch. Every 3 years we'd go to the toilet bowl or the armpit bowl, but you've got to be able to run the football. If you can't run the football, I don't think you can win.
No, you can't. And I mean, if anything else, and we've learned it, running the football is just controlling the clock. That's the main thing now, is controlling the clock. And it also gives your chance for your defense to not be on the field as much. And I think that also wore on Oklahoma a little bit, because they're on the field an awful lot in all those, throughout that game. What a great interception by my buddy DJ Graham in that game. I mean, a phenomenal interception by one hand. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Got to talk to him a little bit after the game on Saturday. He was elated. He said that his iWatch almost completely blew up. 1,500 text messages he got after that interception last week, just from the fourth quarter to the time he came walking out of the stadium. So, I mean, but he's a great kid, young kid. He's from Keller, went to Keller Central. So props to him on that. But yeah, you've noticed that some of these offenses we thought were going to be vaunted are not there yet. I'm wondering if they're still on COVID or not. I'm not sure, but it's just odd when you see that maybe Penn State and Alabama, they got the highlight wins so far, beating Florida and Auburn, respectively so far. So maybe you get some new blood in this Final Four this year. Maybe this is the year that there's not really 3 or 4 dominant teams, like they normally before. Ohio State's already got a loss. Clemson's already got a loss. So, I mean, that's very rare that it's not October. It's not October yet, and both of those 2 teams got a loss already.
Yeah, COVID's been so tough on all sports. I mean, taking the year off, the no fans, it changed guys' workout regimes. We'll never know all of it. And, if I were a GM or a player personnel guy, and I'd be looking for those guys that really underperformed this year, that it doesn't make sense. Wait a minute. This guy's only 29 years old. Why is he terrible all of a sudden? And I think I'd go sign a bunch of those.
And finally, we were talking a little bit about the Cowboy game. I didn't get to see a whole lot of this game, but I did get to see the end of it. And, first thing I want to say, I think that Mr. Hubert's going to be one of those, once in a lifetime quarterbacks for San Diego. I think that guy's got every tool in the toolbox. It's just a matter of him just getting experience. I mean, he's got 6'4", 6'5", strong arm. I mean, he's got the moxie. It seems like he's got the mental capacity to that. And I mean, San Diego's
He's
going to
not
be
afraid to run football either, man.
Yeah, San Diego's got a pretty good, nice piece to work around for the next decade or so, for sure, with that guy. But the Cowboys, think about this. I was thinking about this. If they don't win that game and you come back home 0-2, what is the mindset now? In a division that looks very winnable. Would the sky be falling if they didn't hit a 56-yard field goal to win it?
Because it's easy to walk away from losing to the Super Bowl champs and being in that game and knowing that you could have won it if, come on, you just get an extra point and a field goal maybe. Although, like you said in our last one, Brady was going to find a way to get that done, probably. But
Brady will find a 9-point touchdown somehow.
Yeah, right. The Cowboys hung with them and coulda, shoulda, might, would have won that game later in the season. But 0-2 is 0-2.
Right.
Even though this was another well-fought game, and you can say that for one game,
Sure.
2 games, 3 games. You can't do that for us. So it was a big win for them, and I think there were a lot of positives to take out of the game. I don't think Dak was as sharp,
No.
and but what did we do right? We ran the football pretty good, and
Yep.
it's just so when do we have a running back controversy in Dallas? You know, when is Pollard going to be the number one guy? Because wow.
Well,
He's
the
looking
thing
good.
about it, he's got a burst that, Zeke doesn't have, and that's the one thing that is very obvious when you see theirs. So even the novice fan goes, wow, he gets to the hole so much quicker. They're just different runners. But yeah, you got a dilemma there into the point that Zeke's contract just started this year, and that's got 5 more years of this contract. So Zeke is not going anywhere. I mean, but it's nice that you have 2 running backs because you and I both know normally running backs don't make the whole season anyway. Normally they get a nick here or there, miss a game 2 or here. Now at least you got a plan B that's is beyond just serviceable now. That somebody can make an impact on the game. And I'm with you. If you just play physical football, especially in that division, you're going to win football games. Especially in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Division.
Well, something else too. I said this to a friend watching the game. Part of why Pollard looks so explosive and why it works too is Zeke sets that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're used to this cadence and timing. All of a sudden, boom, you've got this guy hitting that hole a little quicker. Will it have much impact if it's just Pollard? And that 1-2 punch, probably a way healthier way about it, but it does bring to mind the Tampa Ray effect football. And does it ever really make sense to sign a deal with the run back? I just believe in it, man. I would rather have the best offensive line in the NFL and draft a great running back in the top 3 or 4 rounds every other year and see what happens.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm a Steeler fan, and I was so glad that they did not re-sign Le'Veon Bell. And what has Le'Veon Bell done since he left the Steelers? He went from a top 3 running back in the NFL to now. Do we even know where he's at? So yeah, I've total agreement.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, total agreement. You just can't put that kind of money into a running back. I should say they're a dime a dozen, but you can always find a running back in the draft every year. You can always find a wide receiver, running back in the, that's going to play in the National Football League for years. You just don't need to tie up millions into that where it hurts you because you got to pay your quarterback. So you paid your quarterback and your running back ridiculous money now, and that hinders you in other spots. So you have to make hits in the draft. Now, it looks like that they did have a big hit in their first rounder, Micah Parsons. Mark Parsons looks like he's going to be a budding star, in this league. Looks like the Diggs guy is going to be a nice player in this league. So when you draft players like that, that helps because they're not making the huge money yet. But, you have to all balance that, when you pay all those guys up front in the offensive line and you pay, that's why the defense doesn't get a whole lot of money every year, because all the money's tied up in all those offensive guys. So it's a delicate balance.
It is. But I look back in history at the great running backs, the Hall of Fame running backs. Watch some old videos of Franco Harris.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You don't ever see him make a move like you've seen Barry Sanders do or Sweetness, or you don't see him doing what the one-man gang for me was Earl Campbell. He was just a beast. Like you could just add him to any team and give him the ball 35 times a game, and you were competitive. And
I would.
But Franco played maybe the best line in offensive. I mean, in history of the NFL, I think. And he ran through holes that I'm pretty sure Kenny and Billy could have run through. And you know, it's part of it, but
Right.
I don't want to say they're a dime a dozen, but I think you can get a great running back every year. So I'm allocating my salary cap money to that offensive line, my quarterback, and to my defensive line.
Yeah, a pass rusher. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey guys, we want to wrap it up here, man. We really appreciate you guys listening to us again. We enjoy this so much. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Go through Friday Night Glory or Walls to the Wall. Like we said, we love the suggestion box. Anytime, please feel free. You know, you can criticize us, pat us on the back, whatever you want to do. But hey, we love to hear from you. You know, silence is deadly. Sometimes. So we'd rather hear some feedback, even if it's bad. It's critical. That's all right. We'll get better at this, I assure you. We enjoy this. One of the highlights of the week is being able to talk to my buddy here, Billy Martin Jr. I appreciate you. Appreciate you working your schedule around. We'll keep finagling it. We'll get it down. We're good.